as web developers, you have no idea what devices people are using to access your websites, or what devices people will be using to access your websites a year from now. Computers, smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, smart fridges, smart microwaves, smart watches. Who knows what people will use to access your content? So, as a web designer, web developer, you need to create your website thinking of screen sizes, not of devices. You don't know if people are going to use the iPhone or the Android phone, and those two might be obsolete a year from now. So, but you do know that they might access from a screen that's, say, 400 pixels wide, or a screen that's 1,000 pixels wide, or something that's 2,000 pixels wide. So the approach that you take with content is as if content was liquid that you could literally pour on any sort of recipient, and it should do the job, as in people can read your content, they can access the different options of the page. That is the approach that we're going to take in this lesson with our project. Because so far our project looks great on a small phone, on a small screen. We've taken a mobile first approach, which is with start with the mobile version, and which is the smallest screen. So once you've got that, it's easier to adapt to a bigger screen than to go the other way around. So the way that we're going to implement this is by setting an arbitrary limit, saying, okay, screens that are more than 700 pixels will have the bigger version of the site. So that's what happens in the final project. If you make the screen go a bit bigger, once you reach 700 pixels, the design adjusts to a bigger screen. You have only one service per line, and then you have two per line. So keep in mind that we are using the same CSS code in both cases. It's not a different page for the mobile and a different page for the desktop. That approach is obsolete for over 10 years. That's how people used to do it when smartphones just started being used, and they weren't very powerful. But today, you're using the same design for both, but it adjusts to the screen size. You have no idea if the person's using an iPhone, a Windows phone, who knows, XYZ smart microwave device. You just worry about the size of the screen. So what's happening here is that when the screen is larger than 700 pixels, we call as a group of CSS rules that will change some things on the page. We can do that by using what's called media queries. So let me create that first media query for us, so that our page can react to that change of screen by showing the page with a different style, basically. So to create a media query, you type in the @ media, and the media property is also used to specify when you want to print your page. So there's something called media print, but we're not worrying about that, but we are worried about screen. So it's media screen, and then we can say and in here we specify conditions. So the condition is that the minimum width of the page needs to be 700 pixels. In here, you'll add certain rules that will only apply in that case. Let me give you an example. Let's say that the intro text is no longer going to be gray in this case, but it's going to be red. This is a quick way of checking this. So what happens if I make this grow? See how the text changes color. So basically all the rules that are in here only apply on the page once the screen is at least 700 pixels. Now, this is not a rule we want, clearly. We'll start by fixing this part up here, which should be looking like so. It's a more efficient use of the space than this. Okay, so these are the rules that we need in here. First of all, the UL element is going to be aligned to the right of the screen. So text align right. That doesn't change anything for now, but it will have an effect once we implement the other rules. Now, the individual list elements, these ones will display as what's called an inline block. which is that they're not going to use all the horizontal space, but they're all going to pile up next to each other on the same horizontal space, as opposed to them being full blocks that occupy all 100% of the width, which is the behavior of the divs by default. And that is actually display block. That's the default behavior of the divs. But now we want inline block. What else? We don't want that border in the bottom anymore. So we're going to set that to 0. And we do want a border on the side. So we need a border on the left. Border left will be of 1 pixel, solid, and black. And what else do we want? The text itself inside the cells is going to be aligned to the left. And that would be all for the top, except for one little thing. See that there's there's a space on the right of each one. The way to solve that is a bit of a hack. Basically, on the parent object, we need to give this a font size of 0. This is a bit of a hack. Sometimes in CSS you have some hacks to get things the way you want, and that's something that you learn with practice. Once you reach certain problems, sometimes you'll find on the internet ways to solve it that are a bit unusual. So that's all for the top menu. And now the services area is simple as well to style. We want to have 2 at a time. So we'll style our single service by giving them a width of 50% of the available space, but that's not enough for them to show at the same time. We need to add a property called float left, which makes them all stuck to the left. So we can use float left here, and that makes the elements sort of float onto the left of the next element, but they occupy 50% of the screen, so there's not going to be any more than 2. So as you can see, we are done, and we have a fully responsive page now that looks great on different devices. And we built this from absolute scratch. We started with HTML, building a skeleton that looked quite horrible at the beginning, and step by step we've added our CSS rules to make this page a fully responsive homepage. So those are the basic. Once you've reached this point, you've reached a basic level of CSS. You should be able to have a play now and try to build a few things and play with all the rules that we've covered. And I hope that you found this useful and it really sets you on the right track on your coding journey.